So I had a comment asking if I could maybe do a video on the seasonal window of opportunity hiking the Continental Divide. And I think it's going to have to be a series because I'm kind of long-winded. And I do have kind of a unique perspective on the geography and the political landscape of the Continental Divide at both ends. I spend a lot of time in Glacier. I spend a lot of time in southern New Mexico. And I have some ideas on what I would suggest people do if you're going to do the Continental Divide Trail. You know, I started Antelope Wells at the very bottom of the Boot Heel, which at that time in '99 was, you know, about the size of a convenience store, a little block window with a couple guys inside. Dirt road going into Mexico on the other side. Now it's a multi-million-dollar complex down there. And most people, you know, start up at the Crazy Cook Monument in, you know, the armpit of the Boot Heel, only because of property rights issues. And the property rights issues were in effect back then too. You know, the Gray Ranch, Animas Foundation, pretty much controls the Boot Heel, but if you look at a map, like a topographic map, it'll show that there's a lot of state land, national forest land, a lot of leased land in there. And you know, I had read Karen Berger's book. I showed that the other day on a video about books on hiking, and they said in that book, which is what I read trying to get some information how to get across, that, you know, people were unceremoniously thrown off of that land trying to cross it, trying to do the divide. And so they started in Columbus. But I was determined that I was going to start at the bottom of the Boot Heel, and I actually tried to cooperate. I found the Animas Foundation. It was just a little farmhouse down in the Boot Heel. There was a Dr. Brown doing a study on how many acres it took to feed a cow in the desert, which must be about 5,000 because there's not much out there. But anyway, I found him, and I was going to ask him if I could hike across, you know, the Boot Heel. And he came out of his office. I asked the question. He didn't say anything. He just turned around and walked back in his office and shut the door. So I took that as yes. And so I was doing, I guess, the not Arlo Guthrie, Woody Guthrie song, "This Land Is Your Land." So, and there's a line in there where it says, you know, on one side of the sign it says no trespassing, on the other side it doesn't say nothing. That side was made for you and me. So I didn't want to get thrown off, and so I did kind of stealth camp across there. But in most areas, I think with my mapping, I was actually on leased land, which I assumed I could legally be on. But I had to get water at windmills. You know, I'm going up the Playa Valley, and I'm just walking through the desert. There's no trail. There was very little trail established at that time. And so to get water, I'd see windmills on the horizon, and I would have to go from windmill to windmill. But I'm not telling you that's what you should do. The internet was kind of young back then. When I finished the trail, I got on some forums thinking I could help people with, you know, mapping and getting across different areas. And I got a lot of flack from going across the Boot Heel. You know, the Continental Divide Trail Alliance was kind of run out of Pine, Colorado, and the guy that ran it was on that forum. And a lot of people gave me grief for going across there when they were trying to establish a trail and get along with everybody. And my answer to them was, you know, I tried to contact them by email, by phone, by letter for months before I even started this trip to get some information. I never heard from them. But once I got back, I was hearing from them once a month, trying to raise money and sending me letters to donate. So I know they do communicate when they needed money, but not when I needed information. So I did it my way. If they wanted me to do it their way, they should have dealt with me back then. So most people now start at Crazy Cook Monument in the armpit of the boot heel. And that's not just a monument dedicated to the start of the Continental Divide Trail, but also a chuck wagon cook who stuck an axe in the back of some cowboy's head because he had the audacity to complain about the food. So I guess New Mexico has a thing about odd monuments and geographical area, historical, maybe hysterical monuments, because if I started the trail again, I would do what Karen Berger and her husband did. I'd start in Columbus, New Mexico. Starting at Crazy Cook, you basically go to Lordsburg, New Mexico, and it's about $150, which is very reasonable for what they do. They shuttle you down to that monument, and it's a high clearance vehicle route down there once you leave, get south of Cheetah. And so, I'm not saying that, you're going to save a ton of money by doing Columbus, but what Columbus does for you, so say you're taking the train, instead of getting off in Lordsburg, get off in Deming. Deming has public transportation, which would get you down to Columbus, New Mexico. And there is a state park commemorating Pancho Villa, who was the last guy to attack us before 9/11. And the park's named after him, but it's a funky little town. It's got some eateries, it's got a nice library. You can stay at the state park, I think, probably for $8. And nice people there. And just a couple miles down the road, you cross into Mexico, and there's a little town called Palomas, which is where my dentist and my eye doctor are, and a great little restaurant called the Pink Store. So I can't think of a better place to start the CDT than the Pink Store. So you get great food. If you're there for lunch, you're going to get a free margarita or beer or whatever you want. Just a neat place. If you need eyeglasses, it's like right next door. So here in the U.S., I pay about $500 for these things. I bought these in Mexico for under $200. Great eye doctor. I'm looking at frames. I don't speak Spanish, but the little gal said, "Senor, what are you looking for?" And I said, I just want a pair of glasses that make me look like Brad Pitt. And without hesitation, she said, "I'm sorry, sir, we don't sell miracles. We only sell glasses." And then she felt so bad that she gave me 20% off nothing already. So again, you buy glasses in the U.S., you pay $500, you wait a week for them. There, you buy them for, half, a third of that, and you go have lunch at the Pink Store, and you come back and they're done. And then, if you need your teeth cleaned before you head up the trail, the other side of the store is my dentist. Here I pay $200 to get my teeth cleaned. Down there, $35. And they do a better job. So anyway, it'd be kind of a festive place to begin the trail. It's a great route. It's actually an alternative route, and it's all the same geography. When you leave Columbus and head for Silver City, it's pretty much the same geography as leaving Crazy Cook or Antelope Wells. You're walking across the same Chihuahuan Desert.
Thank you.
So to wrap up this video, let me try and answer the question about the seasonal weather window. It's really not much different. The CDT is not that much different than the PCT. You still have some Achilles heels to deal with, and whereas the Sierras on the PCT is your snow problem, the San Juans in Colorado are going to be your snow problem on the CDT. Not that you won't hit, some snow before then, but the San Pedro Wilderness outside of Cuba, New Mexico, I hit snow, but it was very manageable spring snow. I hit a little bit at Mount Taylor, the highest point in New Mexico on the CDT, but again, it was just a dusting. So when I got to the San Juans though, so in the Sierras on the PCT, you kind of want to get there maybe mid-June, depending on the weather year. And right now, we all know that the weather is all over the map. No pun intended. And you never know what one year to the next is going to be. So it's snow and fire you have to worry about nowadays. So anyway, I got to the San Juans, Cumbres Pass above Chama on Memorial Day, 1999. And I just went from really hot New Mexico desert to post holding up to my crotch. And I actually went back down the pass to Chama, got a pair of snowshoes, ran into another hiker. There were about 4 of us that year that I know of, that I would run into all the time, Laura and Leslie and Andy. And I ran into Andy in Chama. I had hiked with him a little bit in New Mexico, and he had done the same thing. There's so much snow, he came down, went to Pagosa Springs and got some snowshoes. And so anyway, I got some snowshoes and we went back and tried to get through the San Juans together. And all we were doing now is post-holing in snowshoes. So now instead of just trying to get your foot out, you got to get your snowshoe out. Anyway, I did a lot of post-holing in Colorado, I'll tell you that. And I've done sections. I've done the San Juans more than once since then, different times of the year. Last time I did it, I made it to Wolf Creek Pass, and I got blown out by fire. The ski area there, they were afraid they were going to lose it. My last night on the trail, I can remember looking west toward Pagosa and seeing that fire coming my way, and I didn't sleep well that night. And then by the time I got to Wolf Creek Pass, they'd shut the trail down into the Weminuche Wilderness. So, fire and snow, that's your problem when you're trying to figure out a schedule. But I started in Antelope Wells on April 28th. And I could have started much earlier. You're not going to really have a big problem like in once you leave Silver City and go up into the Gila. You could start a lot earlier. Where you're going to have your problem is when you get to Colorado. You get there too early and it's a snow year, average or above average, you're going to get stopped there. What you've got going for you today is gut hook, far out, so you at least know where the trail's at, and you can suffer your way through. We certainly did. So the other end of the spectrum is Glacier, and I ended up finishing in Waterton September 16th, and I had beautiful Indian summer weather. It was so nice I just wanted to turn around and head south, but that's not always the case there. And so many people now are starting in Glacier and going south, which I don't recommend. I think you're missing out on so much. I mean, Glacier should be the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow when you're doing the CDT, and You should just suck all the juice out of life when you're there. It's just an incredible place. And if you're starting in the spring, you're going to start at Chief Mountain, which I don't recommend finishing if you're going north. You're going to start at Chief Mountain because you're forced to. There's too much snow every place else. You're not going to go through the ptarmigan tunnel. You're going to have to go over Red Gap Pass. You're just trying to get through Glacier because of the snow. I mean, the Going to the Sun Highway didn't open until mid-July this year. So just because you want to get started, you're going to miss the most spectacular part of the trail. And so going north, I would say you would want to get there anytime, you know, depending on how fast you are and light you are, anytime between mid-August and mid-September. And you shouldn't have any problem. You know, I remember I watched Homemade Wanderlust, Dixie, a lot, and I know when she did her trip, she had to go home for a wedding or something, and you know, she got there late. She had to road walk to Chief Mountain, so she missed the whole park basically. And what a shame, after doing all that hard work, to miss the crown jewel of North America. It's just an incredible place. So my suggestion would be, don't go to Chief Mountain when you finish. Go to Waterton, and you can take the traditional route, which would be going up to Mini Glacier, going up Swift Current to Granite Park, and then along the Highline Trail all the way into Canada. But getting a permit in Glacier is not a cakewalk. And so when you get there, you should have lots of other plans. And the other plan I would suggest would be, in a lot more campsites to deal with and pick, would be the Belly River. So you go from Mini Glacier up through Ptarmigan Tunnel and then up the Belly River instead of going to Chief Mountain. And you go over, there's tons of campsites along there, much easier to get a campsite in there. And then you go up over Stony Indian Pass, and then you drop down and hit the High Line, and then up into Goat Haunt and Canada. So that's really another just spectacular valley in there. You just can't go wrong. Just don't go to Chief Mountain. So I hit the Bob Marshall probably the beginning of September, and you know, at the time I was just using a bivy sack, you know, like sleeping in a body bag. And I can remember more than one morning rolling out into a snowbank, and not fun. So, you know, again, you have to start thinking about this when you leave the border in Mexico, that you want to get north before that snow starts flying. And that should be the carrot on the end of your stick. If you're going southbound, now you got to deal with Colorado. You know, you're starting in, say, mid-June. You got to get through Colorado before the September storms start hitting. So everything's changing quickly, and you've got to consider the snow conditions, fire closures, the permitting system in Yellowstone and Glacier. You know, there's no guarantee you're going to do a through hike without flip-flopping because of fire anymore. But my suggestion would be, you know, do your math. How long is it going to take you to get to Cumbres Pass, Colorado? And give yourself plenty of time. But I wouldn't get there too early. You know, if there's a normal snowpack, the San Juans are going to be a problem any earlier than that. And if you're heading south, you know, again, Glacier has a lot of snow. You're just going to skip through by going Chief Mountain to Mini. You are going to have to get across Triple Divide Pass, which is going to be a little hairy, I think. And you're going to have to wait till the snow clears. Cy Pass. There's just so many areas that are just going to be blocked with snow. I would go the other way. So I know a lot of people in glacier backcountry, and I've been warning them for years they better come up with some kind of contingency plan to deal with thru hikers, but they don't listen to me. You know, again, when I did it, in '99 there were 4 of us. Now there's probably thousands, and they really aren't ready for that. 2 years ago, one of them said to me, "Yes, you're right. And, you know, we were waiting for the August crush, and 230 of them went south in June." So they haven't done anything to take care of that problem, you know. And I think the way they could do it is to have some group campsites just for thru hikers. I mean, most thru hikers can do the miles. If you can't do the miles, you got to get in the permit system. But if they had 25-mile, say, campsites, they use rentals now a lot, about halfway through. But cut bank, they could make one so you almost get out to the front country, and there is a front country campground there. They could make a group site there. It's a beautiful little valley, not far off the trail. That could be a site. The next day you could come out in St. Mary's in the front country where there's stores and restaurants, and most thru hikers would enjoy that. There's beer. And then shuttle back to the trail, and the next day you'd get over to Mini Glacier, Swift Current Valley. Again, restaurants, stores, front country campground. They could make a big group campsite just for thru hikers there. And then those going to Chief Mountain should be able to get out the next day. Otherwise, you're going to have to get into the permit system to get through the Belly River, or go up through Granite Park and the High Line. But at least at that time you're within striking distance. You're 2, maybe 3 days from Canada. So, you know, it's the Park Service is well run. You know, they do have a problem. It is grizzly bear country, and they do a great job of running that backcountry. You don't have to carry a bear canister in Glacier. They have a hanging food system that works very well. Everybody eats in the same area, hangs their food. I have a lot of respect for Glacier management, but they're kind of dropping the ball on thru hikers, and I think their attitude has been, we don't owe anybody a permit. But what I've been telling them is, you know, people just walked 3,000 miles. They're not stopping. So you're either going to deal with them illegally, or you're going to deal with them legally. And, you know, it's kind of in a catch-22 for me. I see the problems they have. You know, the Reynolds fire a few years ago, they feel was started by a CDT thru hiker with a alcohol stove. I don't think that was ever proven, but they are pretty sure. And so I see a lot of people doing a lot of stupid stuff in the backcountry, and they have to deal with all that. So all I can say is, hopefully they do the right thing and come up with a system, and you do the right thing and leave no trace, and try and cooperate. So there's so much information now, you know, starting in New Mexico. You don't have to figure out so much. You've got a good route with Far Out, Gut Hook. I call them both, excuse me, but I'm so used to Gut Hook. Anyway, you know, when I started, all I heard from people were, you know, woe is me. You're going to run into nothing but rattlesnakes and drug mules with AK-47s going across the boot heel. Well, again, I'm blind in one eye, and my wife says I do the Mr. Magoo hike. And maybe I do, because I didn't see a rattlesnake or an AK-47. And when I ran into a cop crossing Highway 9 at the top of the boot heel, he said, you know, he's just wondering what I was doing. He saw me crossing the road with my pack, and I asked him, you know I just trespassed across 60 miles of the boot heel, so what's north of me? Who owns that ranch? He said, oh, he said, property changed hands out here like money in a crap game. Who knows? So I never ran into a rancher that was mean. Nobody invited me in for roast beef, but they were all kind, told me where I'd find water when I got talking with them. And those were the days when the sagebrush rebellion was going on. So Forest Service people, land management people, and ranchers weren't getting along too well, and even some offices were getting firebombed. And I didn't run into that. You know, I was concerned about how I was the reception I was gonna get. And again, every rancher I ran into, I'd just tell them to keep smiling, and they told me where I'd find water. So in my opinion, heading north into the spring instead of south into the winter is a much wiser decision if you're going to hike the CDT. But you know, hike your own hike, do your own thing, do your own due diligence, and decide for yourself. But you're going to miss Glacier. You're just going to miss, they call it the crown of the continent for a reason. It's just a spectacular place. So if you miss it going south, go back and do a section hike. Keep smiling.